you'll give it a bit of function.
Rust on the Fury. We're doing typical rust you get in a 50-year-old plus car. Some of the front guards all gone. There's actually a rib support that goes down here and ties into a bracket under here. So keeping this one simple, I'm just going to take do a patch repair through here. This is all clean. I've looked up under the back and I'm just going to do a joint in there and fold underneath to make it simple. So I've already started. I made this bit of a bracket. This is a replica of the bracket that was there before. That gets bolted up in there. Bolt that in there like that. And then I'm going to cut this through here. And then the bracket in here will be revealed. The bracket looks like it's rusty lower than the actual outer panel. So I'm going to expose that, then I'll show you how to make the bracket down to this mount, weld all that in, and then I'll put the patch on last. It'll just go down on the edge, right on the corner. I'm going to butt joint it through there and it gets folded down in there, and it'll come down and get plug welded up under there, so it'll be nice and strong, be back like it was before. So when I make the patch for the bottom of the guard here, I'm going to make it bigger than obviously that I need, and I'm going to put the fold in underneath, and then I'm going to start cutting it in, because this will give me the location with the fold at the bottom of the guard. So it's too hard to try and make the patch perfect before you start. I tend to have one point to anchor off, and then I've got something to work with. If it's a bit big, then I can just slowly work it down till I get in there. So all the structure underneath is good, which is lucky. The chassis is good, the inner sill there. So we'll start making. I'll take some pictures along the way. Just give you a look at the final sort of section, if you like, that I've done on the Fury. I know how easy it's going to be to see in the camera here. So this is the reclaimed floor that I got out of a Dodge Phoenix. So once it's all assembled, you won't be able to tell, really. There is a little seam line along here, and that was because the floor that I got had some rust in the front, and my original floor of the car didn't, so I had to put a small overlap at the front there. Otherwise it's all gone back in as factory, so the floor's gone back into the wheelhouse. The inner wheelhouse extensions have been used from different, I don't know if you can see that, different parts, so they're actually B-body Roadrunner Charger lower quarter extensions. I've done it in two-piece. And then a wheelhouse repair, because the wheelhouses always get nibbled where they join the floor pan as well. Same with this side. This side was a bit worse. It had a little repair that I did up over the top of the wheel arch before I did the quarter panel repair. I probably filmed that earlier. So basically it looks pretty neat and tidy under here. I'm not aiming to win shows, but it looks decent, and when the tank goes back in, the fuel tank and exhaust and all the details, and it'll look alright. So here we go inside the boot. So all these C bodies had a unique sort of fleck finish in a grey. So this is the end result. So now that the seam seal is back in and around the wheelhouse, I've got seam seal on the bottoms of the quarters where it was they were replaced or remade down there. Same with this side. Oh, there's a bit of dirt down there at the moment, but you know, looking at it now, you wouldn't even know it's been fiddled with. It looks really good. Of course, none of this you really see. It goes under a floor mat. Most of you don't see. But like I said, because you can't buy anything, I've had to reclaim, patch, mix and match and do whatever I can to make it all work. So not quite as easy as doing the patch panels you can buy for the B and E bodies, A bodies as well. So anyway, it's all good. So just making the strengthener or the inside rib for the bottom of the front guard that's rusted away. This makes it a nice strong job when you finish. I couldn't do the same profile. It was very difficult to bend it that profile and then actually curve it, because it actually curves down the side. So I've made it the opposite way, but it'll still be strong, and that's the main thing at the end of the day, and all the rust is gone. So one more section forward, one more to go. So there we have it. So that's just the inner structure. So this is nicely bolted back up as it was originally. This is the inner frame. It's going to give it so much more strength. Now, admittedly, I couldn't make it in that profile. I didn't think I was going to be able to curve it, because it actually curves this way. And by folding so many lines in it like that, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, or 5 folds. It'd be too hard for me to get it. It's actually got quite a curve on it. I'd never be able to curve it enough on those with so many lines in it. So I just folded the outside edges and then rolled it and then welded it in here. It may not be perfect, but it's strong and it's rust free. So now we've got the front of the sheet metal. So this is the old piece here. So I've done it in such a way to keep all the shape. So I've kept this edge down here, which is in good condition. And now I've just got to make a piece like that, and I'll concentrate on 90-degree fold down that line, and the fold under here. Then I'll leave the rest of the material large, bigger than I need, I should say. So then I'll make this fit perfect in here, and then I'll cut it in and roll it, make it all work. Anyway, so here we go. Okay, so this is the patch panel for the bottom of the front guard. It's got a very slight curve this way, which I've hammered in by hand, because I couldn't have bent it in the fold, it would have been dead straight. So now I need to curve it to follow the bottom of the guard. So I'm going to do that in the shrinker. Got a little bit of welding wire just for a rough guide. That's kind of the curve I'm looking for. So let's have a bit of a go at that. If I get the edge right, then hopefully I can just curve the rest of it over my knee. But we'll wait and see about that. So it needs quite a bit at the top. So I don't know if you can see that coming around. But already actually not looking too bad. So just that little bit of squishing, you can see it's got quite a big curve in it now. So now this bit here is meant to be curved, but rather than use the punishing hammer, I'm going to see if I can bend that over my knee. So it's already curved this end because of that edge. So I can bend this over my knee and get the shape closer. And the idea is it's going to overlap, and then I'm going to start trimming it down until I get it close, and I'm hopefully going to do a butt joint on it. So that's the first stage. So just try and give you an idea how I slowly rough things in. People always ask me, how do I cut it to shape and all that? So what I try to do is sneak up on it slowly. So this is just roughly in position. I mean, it's amazing standing back already how much better it looks, just because there's not a big rusty gaping hole. So what I'll do is I'll slowly, so I want to try and butt this join here, and I'm going to weld up on the edge there. But what I'm going to do is step the panel, this is exaggerated, in here and here, and try and pick up right in the corner where the material's going to end, and then I can tuck the sheet metal up behind the guard. And once I can do that, then I can actually start getting a much better idea how long it needs to be, and I can start trimming it slowly, because I do want to try and do a butt joint across the bottom of the guard. So just roughly, quietly, slowly, just sneak up to it, and then hopefully we'll get it in shape. So you can see already I'm just pushing on that, but it's looking so much better. The curve is looking pretty good. Like I said, it's not quite in yet, but anyway, I'll keep going. Okay, getting closer and closer. So just very slowly trimming it in. Getting it in position, just looking really good. I ended up having to use the plenishing hammer along this to get this radius more even along here, and also the radius in here. It's quite a complex shape. It's surprising how much goes into it. So where I'm at now is I'm going to be very carefully scribe a line right on the edge of the panel where they join, and I want to be able to cut it perfect on the line so then I can actually butt weld that all the way along. There won't be an overlap this time. And also, you mightn't realise, but you need to do these repairs on the car. You cannot do a lower guard or lower quarter, or quarters you can't, but lower guard you can't do, or door corners if they're rusty, because they just spring and go in all sorts of directions. So you have to, at least if you're going to do them off the car, put them back on the car and double check them. But all along, one very important thing is you've got to get your straight edge and make sure that you aren't dog earing the repair, and you can make the guard come right out at an angle. Like it's a little bit out at an angle at the bottom, and I'll pull that in as I weld it. But you must check it for parallel, otherwise you end up with a bottom panel dog earing at the corner, which looks terrible. So anyway, so we're getting there. It's not quite right yet, but it's getting close. So we'll keep going. Now it's roughed out. So fill stitches at the end here, keep it all stable, and then this part's the most important. I'll put little stitches and I'll start joining those up, but I'll also keep a damp rag and I'll quench it along the way, because you can pull a big woof into it, like it'll shrink through the middle and you'll have a big low spot, which we don't want. So I've just got to run a little line down the corner there of weld. I've already plug welded up underneath, and obviously now it's bolted back on as original. And looking really good. I'm really happy with the line of it. The radius looks real good with the shape of the door to the sill. Nice radius down here through the front. So once I've finished welding that in, that's a butt weld. So about to finish that welding that in, I'll be able to buff it nice and smooth, and just be a tiny thin smear of filler over the surface just to make it perfectly straight. I'll probably flex that a little bit. When I can flex that forward a bit and get a slightly bigger gap there. It's a little bit tight. But now that it's all one piece, I can actually loosen the bottom bolts, and I can tweak that a little bit and just bring it over and make a slightly bigger gap. I've got to open the door, get the car back on the ground, open the door up, and I've got to run a weld down in here. There's a little plug weld there, and then there's a little, actually I can do that off. No, actually what I'll do is I'll unbolt the guard. I can spring the guard out, and then I can weld it on the side here and then push the guard back in again. So I'll be able to do that easy. But I'll get it all strong and finished first. It's looking good. I mean, wow, compared to before with those horrible big rust holes, this is what we started with. So I'm also going to, I don't know if you can see, I can't do it in the middle here, these holes here are for the Pentastar badge. All Mopars have on the right hand guard, and it goes on the side here. So I'll use this as a template and I'll drill through those, get them in exactly the right spot. Just from out of interest, the American Mopars had the Pentastar only on the right side front fender, and on the Australian cars they had them on the the left side front fender. And they do that because when you're parked in the gutter, you'll see in America, obviously you park the opposite side, you'll see the Pentastar. And in Australia, because you park on the other side of the road, the Pentastar's on the left-hand side front guard. So just a little bit of trivia. Anyway, so it's coming along, looking so much better. Another little technique I use quite often is using the old sheet metal, if you can, as a template for holes, for badging particularly. So there's a little Pentastar that always goes on the front guard on these cars. Two little holes that shows it's not only locates it but also clocks the Pentastar the right way around. So I've just lined up the old rusted section, still got the two existing holes in there, and all you're going to do is drill through the existing hole. We're a little bit careful not to move the template because it's only held down by masking tape, but you'll find you'll get pretty close. Okay, so there you go. One other little tip. The two right places for those holes. Now I've got the little patch panel welded in both ends, and I've got little stitches to hold it together. Now I'm just going to run those little stitches together with a MIG, a little wet rag here, soaked with water, and I'll just quench it as I go. And it resists shrinkage, so we're hoping it won't pull too much and suck that shape in. So being so short and also so curved, it's not going to move too much anyway, I don't think. It's much more critical on a great big long repair. But a little repair like that, it's not bad. So just a series of little short stitches, and that seems to do the job. It's looking good. End result fits up perfect. I was able to spring the gap slightly, like I said, after I bolted it up finish once it was all welded. Little line down the bottom corner and a tiny little line, just more of almost just a mark more than anything else. I could keep grinding the crap out of that and make it all shiny, but all you're doing is make it really thin. So when you weld along a distance like that, it always pulls a little bit, so there's a slight little low spot in the middle, which would be ideal. Put a tiny smear of fiberglass filler just over the seam. That'll also resist any moisture getting in from the back, if at all. And then I'll seam seal it from the back. But shape looks perfect. And a million times better than what it was. Now I've only got a few more bits of rust to do. It's coming along. So some people ask me how I got into cars. Well, from a very early age, I had Matchbox cars, Hot Wheels, just like every other kid, Matchbox tracks. And when I was a little bit older, I got Scale Electrics. But mainly my dad, he used to buy and sell cars. He didn't do it as a job, he just liked cars. And he would go to auction, and in later years, in my early teens, I'd go with him sometimes to motor auctions in the city of Melbourne, in the city centre, and he would buy a car from time to time, and I just loved it. When the car came home, together we'd help, clean it up and make it look as good as we can. So as I got older, probably about 15 when I started work, I had a little bit of money, and I bought my sister's car that she'd damaged, a little Cortina. I fixed that up and then sold that pretty quickly, and then my dad came out one day with the old Age newspaper up to his face, and he goes, "How about getting a real car?" He says, "A Monaro for sale." A HQ 2-door LS Monaro, and that was a pretty flash car because my dad had Monaros. My dad mostly had Holdens, so I kind of started into Holdens, and that sort of started rolling from there. So we bought the Monaro, I fixed that up, and then hadn't even got my license yet. I couldn't get it till I was 18. I already fixed that car up. I was doing an apprenticeship as a fitter and turner, so as I earned money, I'd put money into the car. And then another day we were out together, and I spotted in the front yard a HJ Holden ex-police car, which was a V8, a 4.2 litre V8, 3 on the tree.
And I remember looking at it in the car, and I went around the back of the car and I said, Dad, rev it up for me, have a listen to the exhaust. It had a dual exhaust in it, and that was it, and I was in love. So I bought that car, sold the Monaro, then had that for a couple of years. I had that up till I got my licence when I was 18, and then drove that for a little while, and then other cars would come and they'd go. So it was just a revolving door. It was just an insatiable appetite for cars. I couldn't get enough of them, and then I was always looking for something else. And it's really the same today. The only difference is today is that there's not as many of the cars. The cars are harder to find because my taste is getting more refined. But it's also changing. Sometimes I'll see something I never thought of and that might be good, I'll buy that. So it's a thirst that you have. I call it a sickness for buying cars and fixing them up and then enjoying them and having variety and having a pickup truck or a wagon or a sedan or a muscle car with a 4-speed or an automatic, something with lots of power, something's just a cruiser. I just like having the variety of all different cars with different things. And you know, I like old makes. I still like some GM cars and Fords. Mostly today I'm into Mopar only, but I still have a few odd brand X, as my mate would probably call them. And I still find I have that same thirst for cars, and it drives me to finish the cars. I love the finishing aspect, the polishing, the detailing, putting them all back together, and then getting out there and enjoying them. So it's a whole consuming hobby, and the pictures of these early cars is where it all started for me. So I've got a picture of their old photos my wife put onto a computer for us from way back in the 80s, and cars that today are worth a lot of money, back then were worth nothing. They were just old Monaros and Falcons, GTs, LTDs, all those sorts of cool cars that were just used cars at the time, and they weren't that valuable. And they come into auction as a trade-in, and I'd go and buy them, fix them up, drive them around for a bit, get sick of it, sell it, and go and buy another one, and just do it over and over and over. And nothing's changed. I'm still doing the same thing. So anyway, this is a bit of insight how I kind of evolved and how I've sort of my skill level has turned into what it is today from all those cars that I bought and sold. You had to do it on a shoestring because you'd very quickly lose money if you had to pay other people to fix the cars. So you learnt along the way you had to do it yourself. And as I got more proficient, I would do more myself, and I didn't like giving other people the work. I'd rather do it myself, even if it wasn't as good. And eventually, hopefully, get good enough where it is as good as other people do, but you're doing it yourself. So I have a lot of pleasure in building a car from start to finish, covering every aspect, upholstery, paint, mechanically, every aspect of the car. I like to do it myself if I can. I feel like I'm selling myself short if I send it out and get someone else to do part of it. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today, and lucky enough to have some of the more expensive cars today purely because I rolled over so many cars over the years and not really doing it as a business. It's really always been a bit of a sideline. It's more been about I want the next car, but that car will pay for the one after that, and so on. So sometimes cars would stay for, I've had cars I've had for 15, 20 years, and other cars I've had for 5 minutes. It just depends on how much I like the car, or sometimes situations change. You need to sell that one to finance another one, and it just rolls around like that. So anyway, just give you a look at these pictures of some of these old cars that we've had from the past. Some you'll have seen, some you haven't seen for a long time like these, and just cars from my past. It's good to look back at them.
It all started with many push bikes, and this is one. My first V8. This is an ex-police car, 4.2 litre V8. At the time, I thought it was the fastest thing out there. This is a HQ GTS 4-door Monaro, 308 4-speed. Back in the day, I think it was $900. I used to go into auction houses and just pick up whatever cars came along, sometimes just whatever took my fancy on the day. It was great fun, and they just came and went. I loved doing it. This is a HQ Monaro I bought off my dad, and consequently, of course, hot rodded it, put a 350 Chev in it, drove that around for a while, and then, like all the others, moved it along onto something new. Ford Falcon XB Fairmont 302 Coupe, a car that just came along that was sitting in a wreckers, looking pretty sad. Fixed it up, of course, drove it around for a while, then moved it on.
This is a Ford XB coupe. It's a GS Fairmont 302 4-speed. I used to ride past this car on my way to school. And then one day went inside to ask if it was for sale, and the owner said that he was going to give it to his nephew, but he said if it was still sitting there by the time Easter came around to come back. So Easter came around, it was still sitting back, so I went back and bought it. And then of course I did the car up and took it back to show him. He was really rapt to see it all looking shiny like it was back when he bought it. And he told me the story that he went to the Ford dealership with a friend to buy another car, and he saw the car on the showroom floor and bought it on the spot without any idea knowing beforehand. This is a 75 Ford ZG Fairlane. This was a car I bought off the original owner, fully loaded 351, factory sunroof, power windows, 9-inch limited slip. Great car, hard to get today, you don't see many of these around these days. This is a HQ SS, which is a predecessor to the GDS 253 4-speed manual, a car that I think I paid also something like $900 for from auction. It was shabby, just tidied it up and drove around for a while. Good fun. Another Ford Falcon XB Coupe. This is a John Goss special. Wow, what'd that be worth today? Paid nothing for it, and it was a 4-speed car, 302, beauty. This is a 1970 ZD Fairlane, 302 Windsor. 1976 ZH Fairlane, 302 Cleveland, fully loaded. My first Valiant Charger, this is a VK 770 with a 360 automatic, beautiful car. This is a 77 Falcon XC Rally Pack Ute, 302 T-Bar. This is a VJ Valiant Ute that I built. I parted out a Chrysler by Chrysler sedan with a V8 automatic and all the interior and all the chrome pieces, and I swapped everything over, including the front, onto the Ute to make it something a bit unique. This is HG Premier Station Wagon, factory 4.2 litre automatic that I restored. This was a beautiful HX DeVille that I had for a couple of years, bought it in nice condition and just drove around. Lovely. This is my Ford Falcon XC 1977 Rally Pack panel van, 302 T-Bar, power steering, something you don't see anymore. My first work vehicle for my business. Just starting to get into the Mopars now. This is a VG Pacer Coupe that I restored. Beauty. There's another ZH Fairlane, also fully loaded sunroof V8 T-Bar. Even back in the day I had more cars than I probably should. This is a little snippet. My paddock next door to the house where I used to live. The first car is a HJ GDS 4-door Monaro with a 308 4-speed. The second car, 70 Dodge Charger, and then an XY Fairmont sedan, and then right over in the corner is an old ZC Fairlane. I chopped the roof off and drove around as a convertible for years.